Can you hear the music? Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Veshatarane Trinadapi Sunichena Torar Iva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Hare Nama Hare Nama Hare Namaiva Kevalam Kalau Nastyeva 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 Gatir Anyata. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusu. Hare Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusu. Hare Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusudana. Hare Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusudana. Hare Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusudana. Hare Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusudana. Gopala Govinda Ram, Sri Madhusudana. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Radha Ramana Hari, Govinda Jaya Jaya. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajaka Astotra Satyasi Simad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Syama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Yamuna Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the Orlando devotees. All glories to the Orlando devotees. All glories to the Orlando devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Before I begin, I'd like to give all the devotees online blessings. May Krishna bless you, protect you, and maintain you. Show me by thumbs up if everything's good to go. Then we shall continue. First, I will invoke auspiciousness by chanting the sacred 12-syllable mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I was given 3 questions, and I will answer each one, and then I guess we'll take questions and answers. Will that be the format? Very good. So the first question: why does advancement in spiritual consciousness require performance of austerity? So first, we must define what we mean by austerity. Austerity means to deny oneself voluntarily sense gratification in order to pursue some kind of perfection. We see this in the athletic industry. All the great athletes, whatever the sport may be, they undergo very severe austerities in order to master their particular athletic performance. Many of them rise early in the morning, just like devotees rise early in the morning. So many of these athletes are also practicing not spiritual sadhana, but athletic sadhana by doing so many different routines. They call them reps. Whatever the sport is, if it's basketball, they'll spend hours every day bouncing a ball and shooting it into the hoop, one after sometimes thousands of times, just so that when the game time comes, their reflexes, their body is in tip-top shape. And they also restrict their diet. And they do so many different things just to achieve perfection in their athletic sport. So if austerity is required to perform some kind of materialistic thing, why should one expect in pursuing the topmost athletics? What is that? Achieving God consciousness. That's the topmost pursuit. So what makes one think that one can do so without any kind of practice or austerity? It's not very logical. In order to achieve perfection on the material platform, one has to perform austerities and penances. So why should the pursuit of spiritual consciousness be any different? In the athletic world, one is in pursuit of some kind of championship, some medal, some plaque, some trophy. But that's simply some insignificant material thing. But we, in spiritual consciousness, we are striving for complete liberation. We are striving for direct union with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is not a cheap thing. In comparison to any material achievement, it pales in comparison. We are striving for the topmost perfection, spiritual consciousness. We are striving for an eternal position of service to Krishna, to God. We are trying to achieve love of God. There's nothing higher. And the other point is that we are in material consciousness. The very fact that we have a material body means that we are very much influenced by the bodily senses. But the first item in spiritual life is to get off the bodily conception of life. Just like for me, yesterday was Ekadashi. So Ekadashi is a type of austerity. But by doing such austerity, I am coming off the bodily concept of life. I am achieving a higher plane of consciousness. I am freeing myself from the inclination to enjoy the material senses. That's what austerity means. Denial of enjoying the senses for some higher achievement, for some higher goal. So everything in Krishna consciousness is itself austerity. Why? Because we are trying to get out of the bodily concept of life. Krishna's first instruction in Bhagavad-Gita, his first instruction is not Radha Krishna Leela. Krishna's first instruction is you have to get out of the bodily concept of life. You have to conquer the mind and senses. First 6 chapters of Gita is all about conquering over the demands of the senses, sense control, mind control, and sense control. That is the first business in spiritual consciousness. You have to first get out of the bodily concept of life. So without austerity, without the practice of penances, one is not going to make any kind of material advancement, what to speak of spiritual advancement. All right, let's go to the next question. Why does God not let us remain independent of Him? Such as, why is the material world designed to be corrective? So, the answer to this question is, first of all, we can never actually be independent of God. This consciousness of being independent of God is what we call Maya, illusion. Yes, in the material world, we are given freedom to think we are independent of Krishna. But that is not possible. What is the example? The heat and light of a flame. God is the fire, the flame. The heat and light are part and parcel of the flame. You cannot separate the heat and light from the flame. They're always there. Or the other example, the sun and the sunshine. Yes, first there must be the sun, then there is the sunshine. The sunshine cannot exist independent of the sun. They exist simultaneously. That is true. And that is why we learn in Bhagavad-Gita in chapter 2, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. Neither in the future shall any of us cease to be. Not you, not them, not me. That's one of my songs I wrote based on 2nd chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. So just as the sun ray cannot exist independent of the sun, similarly the soul can never exist independent of Krishna or God. That's a ludicrous proposition. That's why it's called Maya. It's an illusion. Yes, Krishna allows us to think that we are independent, and that is what the state of Maya is. The state of Maya is a lesser or greater degree, because there's so many various degrees of thinking I'm independent of Krishna, but it's simply a conception. It has no tangible reality. That's why it's called Maya or illusion. Now, why is the material world designed to be corrective? That is a manifestation of Krishna's love. Just like some of you, if not most of you, have children. You procreated your child or children in order to expand your pleasure. Husband and wife were happy, and then to expand their pleasure, they had children. And the whole purpose of the marriage arrangement is that the parents want to share their happiness, their wealth, their happy life with their children out of love. So in the same way, the soul was never created. Again, that's what we learn from chapter 2 from Bhagavad-Gita. We were never created. The soul is described in 2nd chapter, Aja. Just as Krishna calls himself Aja in chapter 4 of Bhagavad-Gita, so in chapter 2, Krishna says the soul is also Aja, never born. What does that mean? We always existed, and we will continue to exist in the future. So since we are part and parcel of Krishna, since we emanate from Krishna, it is only natural that Krishna wants us to return to him. Just like if your children go astray, if your children were to get kidnapped, if some harm were to come for your children, you would do anything. You would prepare to pay any price to get your children returned back to you. That is only natural because you love your children. So in the same way, Krishna loves us. So Krishna has designed this world so that eventually, after so many attempts at trying to imitate, that's why we're here. This is what Prabhupada teaches throughout his books. Why are we here? Because we're trying to imitate Krishna as three things. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasan, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. This is the three aspects of God. That he's the enjoyer, that he is the controller, and he is the supreme lovable object. But the conditioned soul, being envious of Krishna, wants to usurp Krishna and wants the living entity itself to be the controller, to be the enjoyer, and to be the center of everyone's attention. That's what we're doing here in this material world to a lesser or greater degree. There is this phenomenon, this psychic phenomenon, in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. In the mode of goodness, it's more subtle, but still there is this sense that I want to be the controller, the enjoyer, and the center of attention. In the mode of passion, this consciousness is ever more prevalent, and in the mode of ignorance, topmost. So, this material world is designed to be corrective, so that after attempting this, that's all we're doing. We're trying to imitate Krishna, but it's not possible. We try. Throughout 8,400,000 species of life, we are trying to do these three things. Finally, whenever it takes, the living entity wakes up. This was my personal realization at the age of 23. As the Prabhu mentioned in my short biography, I wanted to become the next great rock and roll idol. That was my desire. But I realized after so many years of beating my head against the wall that no matter what I did, no matter what I tried, I could not achieve the stardom that I was looking for. Even though I was at the point of suicide even. But luckily, Prabhupada's books saved me. And it was Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's prasadam, Prabhupada's devotees, and Prabhupada himself, which saved me ultimately. So I came to that decision that here I am, trying to become the greatest rock and roll star, but Krishna allowed me to understand it's never going to happen. So then I decided, after reading Krishna book, I read 6 chapters of Krishna book, and then I realized, you know what? Let me give this one life to Prabhupada and Krishna. And that was the best decision I ever made in my life. That was in 1973. And I would make that decision again 1 billion times over, because that has been the most significant decision in my life. Deciding was February 1973, after reading 6 chapters of Krishna book, after Krishna killed Putana, I closed the book and I said, I am going to join Prabhupada's movement, and I'm giving this life to Prabhupada and Krishna. So the material world is designed so that one day, out of the living entity's own free will, that is important. Notice at the end of Bhagavad-Gita, after Krishna explains everything, Krishna tells Arjuna, now I have told you everything. Yate shasi tata kuru. Now you do as you like. That is very important. So we have minute independence, minute free will. Krishna does not want robots. Krishna wants the living entity to voluntarily love. If there's no voluntary love, then it's slavery. Krishna does not want slaves. Krishna wants the living entity on his own free will. Yes, Krishna, I choose you. And that is what is happening when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. With each recitation of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we are voluntarily reaffirming, yes, Krishna, I want to surrender. Yes, Krishna, I want to be your eternal servant. I have to surrender on my own. Krishna, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, we don't see a description of Krishna putting Arjuna in a chokehold and punching him and coercing him, surrender to me. No. In Krishna's Bhagavad-Gita, he appeals to Arjuna's intelligence. He lays out everything to him logically, but in the final analysis, Krishna says, Yate icha yasi tata, as you like, you do. Yate hasi tata kuru. Free will. That's what Krishna wants out of our free soul. The living entity can remain in this material world, suffering birth after birth after birth. As long as the living entity wants, Krishna will never interfere with the living entity's free will. Yes, Krishna has set up this material matrix to be corrective, but as we see even in this material world, somebody is a prisoner 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. He gets paroled and again winds up. So the living entity in the same way can choose to remain separate from Krishna by not surrendering. That's the living entity's choice. We have choice. But the way it is designed is if you have any intelligence, then you realize, yes, I cannot be the controller. I cannot be the enjoyer. I cannot be the center of attention. That is already fulfilled by Krishna. My best course of action is to voluntarily love Krishna. And now we get to the third question. How does one sustain patience, enthusiasm, and determination in bhakti? So for this, the answer is association, association, association. Prabhupada created an international society. Prabhupada created temples. Why? Because nobody can execute Krishna consciousness on their own. We need association. We need encouragement from spiritual master and from other devotees. why are we doing this Zoom program? We are doing this Zoom program to give ourselves enthusiasm and determination in bhakti by hearing from others and by simply discussing the philosophy. As we learn in the 4 nutshell verses of Bhagavad-Gita in chapter 10, the devotees like to discuss with one another their realizations, or in the words of the Nectar of Instruction, a devotee inquires and a devotee reveals things in confidence to someone they trust. So this whole society of devotees around the world, it is association. And what did Lord Chaitanya say? Lava matra, even 1/11th of a second association with the pure devotee can make all the difference. So notice in the ISKCON morning program, the first prayer is to the spiritual master. From the spiritual master, we get enlivened, we get enthused. And by such enthusiasm, we become determined. And along with determination, you learn how to be patient. So for me, of these 3 items, patience, enthusiasm, and determination, the one that matters the most is enthusiasm. So, by worshiping the spiritual master is how you become enthused. Those of you who have received second Brahminical initiation in ISKCON, you chant this word prachodayat several times in the 7 Gayatri mantras that we chant every day, 3 times a day. Prachodayat, which means to become enthused. So the enthusiasm comes from hearing the spiritual master. That's why the first prayer in Mangalarti, Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam, Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindam. Then we perform the Mangalarti. And then after that, a Tulsi Kirtan. Yes, Tulsi awards all kinds of blessings. Again, by worshiping Tulsi, you get enthusiasm. And then, when there is the greeting of the deities, there is the Guru Puja of Srila Prabhupada. All of these activities are meant to enthuse the devotee. So if you want to advance in bhakti, to me, the most important thing is to become enthused. And for me personally, when all else fails, prasadam, prasadam, prasadam. If you need to become enthused, honor Krishna prasadam. But hearing from the spiritual, just like myself, every day, I spend some time every day listening to Srila Prabhupada chant. I have all of Prabhupada's bhajans and kirtans, and every day I am listening to Prabhupada's sound vibration. That is how I become enthused. I also become enthused by reading Prabhupada's books. My favorite book, Krishna book. Sometimes people ask me, Prabhuji, why don't you come to India? I say, I go to India every day. As soon as I open Krishna book and I begin to read Krishna book, I'm in Vrindavan, I'm in Mathura, I'm in Dwaraka. No need to spend any money. I simply have to become absorbed in Krishna book. So Prabhupada has emphasized 4 main books that we should study in order to become enthused. Bhagavad-Gita should enthuse you. Bhagavatam should enthuse you. Teachings of Lord Chaitanya should enthuse you. I just finished recording earlier this year. I recorded the entire Nectar of Devotion. That Nectar of Devotion also enthuses me. So by reading Prabhupada's books, by hearing Prabhupada's sound vibration, I'm enthusiastic. Why am I enthusiastic to preach? Why do I enjoy doing these Zoom programs? It's because I become enthused day after day after day by hearing Prabhupada and chanting and reading his books. Every day I must read his books. When we read Prabhupada's books, we are associating with Prabhupada. When we read Krishna book, you're associating with Krishna. When you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, you are associating with Lord Chaitanya. So our movement is chant, dance, take prasadam. So chanting includes reading the books. That's also chanting. So chant, dance, and my favorite, take prasadam. So before I take any questions, I'd like to sing the prayers of Lord Nrsingadev for the protection of all the devotees there in Orlando. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Dayane. Hiranya Kashipur Vakshaha. Shilatanganakalaye. Ito Nrsinga Parato Nrsimho. Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsimha. Bahir Nrsingo Hridaye Nrsimho. Nrsimham Adim Sharanam Prapadye. Nrsimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye. Nrsimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam. Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Jai Jagadisha Hare. Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Jaya Jagadish. Jaya Jagadish. Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I want to thank ISKCON Orlando for giving me this privilege, yes, privilege, to speak on what I call Bhakti Vedanta Yoga, the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. I cannot thank you enough for allowing me this ecstasy. I want to bless you all thousands and thousands of times.